I wanted to provide a quick refresher on the PS5. It's been 3 months since we last looked at the PS5 code, and the game has seen a dozen updates since then. Initial impressions suggest limited visual changes, comparing the launch and current versions side by side. The most obvious tweak is that shadows from some objects now appear slightly more diffuse as of the most recent patch. I think this is a byproduct of a change to shadow filtering, as the shadows don't exhibit obvious signs of lower resolution rendering. It gives the shadows a more realistic appearance in general, I'd say. I also noticed that the blood decals in this scene appeared higher resolution in the updated game. The water also looks quite a bit different, with more prominent specular. At a distance, it also doesn't have the hazy appearance that we saw in the launch game's water. Image clarity is a pretty close match between the two patches, with a 1440p-like image across all patches and modes. The performance modes appear to use FSR2 to hit that 1440p final image output, and both versions exhibit some ghosting and breakup with the leaves and fire here, though in typical play these aren't really noticeable. The actual resolutions, though, are a little different. The launch game used fixed resolutions, 1440p in quality mode and about 960p in performance mode. But according to developer Larian Studios, the game as of recent updates uses dynamic resolutions on console. Quality mode still came in at 1440p for me across the shots I examined, but the performance mode now comes in at 1080p internally, using FSR2 to upscale to 1440p. I imagine both modes, especially the performance mode, could potentially drop resolution, but if so, it's not very common. Frame rates, however, are much improved. Both modes at launch generally stuck to their frame rate targets in typical play, but they suffered from very poor CPU-bound performance in Act 3, specifically in this busy town area. We saw frame rates in the low 20s and upper teens here in both visual modes, with the density of NPCs apparently causing performance issues on the PS5 Zen 2 based CPU. As of the latest update, the game performs much better. In the performance mode, Baldur's Gate generally hovers in the low 30s when we pass under the most taxing area in this run. The game still suffers from constant screen tearing when it drops frames, but we do see a big performance uplift relative to the low to mid 20s readout that was common before. The quality mode sees a similar uplift. Generally, it sticks to 30 FPS here, with the relatively minor dips below in the most troublesome spot. Where the launch version was in the low 20s, the updated code clocks in at, or very close to, 30 FPS, a pretty substantial upgrade that you can really feel. I couldn't spot any obvious settings downgrades here either, so this comes without clear visual compromises. So I do think that the new PS5 code fares much better than its launch counterpart. When CPU bound, it exhibits substantially more stable performance than the earlier code, which was the #1 issue with Baldur's Gate 3 at launch.